Hey everybody, how's it going? Let's talk fantasy again. But this one with a different twist. Now, I don't actually have my copy of today's book, but I do have the next book in the series, so that's the book I'll be holding up because I want to prove a point in a minute. But today, we're going to be talking about Kushiel's Dart, which is a series I was introduced to by a friend of mine. It's one, going to a bookstore, I never ever would have picked this book up. The problem with the Kushiel's Dart series is the covers all look like romance novels. Like I said, this is not Kushiel's Dart, this is the sequel, but you really don't want to be just caught reading this in a public place, because it looks like you're reading a romance novel. For a girl, it's less embarrassing than for a boy. But this really is a case of not judging a book by its cover. We are going to talk about Kushiel's Dart, and then I'll talk about the rest of the series as a whole. You just have to look past the cover. Kushiel's Dart is pretty interesting for several reasons. First of all, the fantasy world that it takes place in is a fictionalized version of Europe. The main place is France, but it's all of Europe, with a little bit of magic and some extra gods thrown in. It parallels our own religious history up into a point. That point is when Jesus was on the cross, and his blood was spilled on the ground by the Roman with the spear. The blood hitting the ground of Mother Earth gave birth to a new god. And depending on who you talk to, he's either a god or not. The main characters believe that it was a new god. Other religions in the world believe maybe at best an angel, something like that. But a new god came out, and several angels followed him, and he founded basically this new country. And that's the very basics of the mythology of this land. And each section of the new country, which is France, was divided up among the angels to revere different aspects, learning, submission, stuff like that. The main precept of the country is love as thou wilt. So there's a lot of sex in these books. Like a lot. Like a lot. But what surprised me is the depth of the story that goes along with it. The depth of the narrative, the length of the narrative. Kushiel's Dart, the first book, could have easily been 3 different books. There's actually 3 different spots where you could have gone, or 2 different spots where you could have gone, okay, end of this story, and I'll pick up the next book some other time. But it is one long book. They're all fairly massive. I mean, this one comes in at about 700 pages. And again, it's 2 or 3 stories in terms of length and depth and story. It's all very impressive. It's very well told. It's compelling characters. It is a great story. The main character is a female. And she's a young adult. You do start with her childhood and some of her upbringing and training, but for the most part, it's her late teens, early 20s that the adventure takes place in. It's hard to think what to say besides it's very, very good. You just don't want to be caught reading it in public. I did also recently listen to the audiobooks because I had time at work, so I was listening to audiobooks of some of my favorite series. Listening to a young lady whisper some of the passages from this book in my ear was a little uncomfortable at times. So if you're into something a little racier, this might be the book for you. It is absolutely a fantasy series. It just embraces the sexual aspects in a way that a lot of fantasy series don't. And I don't have a problem with the fact that they don't. And I don't have a problem with the fact that this one does. It's what makes it stand out. It's what makes it different. There are 2 other... It's a trilogy. The first series is a trilogy. There are 2 other trilogies set in the same world. The second trilogy is told from a male perspective. It's told from the point of view of a character who's introduced in the last book of the previous trilogy. And it follows him, and it explores the world more. He goes to school in Rome, or Athens, Greece. It's been a little while. And then the final one takes place hundreds of years later. It's a woman again, but the characters from the first two trilogies are now characters of legend. And it ends up going to the New World. It ends up going to America by the end of it. So that's exciting, too. I will say this, though. The first trilogy is the best. Second trilogy is pretty good. And third trilogy's meh. It's better than some stuff I've read by a long shot. But the first trilogy is really where it's at. And it's long. And the story is very compelling. Danger, espionage, spies, political intrigue, assassinations. It's all in there. And then sex. Robert Jordan says, once you pick it up, you won't want to put it down. I agree with Mr. Jordan. That's all I've got. I will say also, I guess, the second book in the first trilogy, which is this one, is the low point of the first trilogy. It's still good. The first book is amazing. The third book is kind of mind-blowing. The second one's kind of the low point. So if you read it, and you really love the first one, and you get to the second one, you're like, it just wasn't as good. Trust me, keep going to the third. So that's all I've got. See you guys next time.